Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Lemnisk Podcast, where we speak with industry leading marketing experts and practitioners about all things marketing, data, and technology. I'm Subra Krishnan, your host and co founder and CEO of Lemnisk. I'm incredibly excited today to be speaking with Zameer Kochar, Chief Marketing Officer at Angel One. Zameer is a high impact brand and digital marketer with extensive experience in building brands that drive business results. He has over 20 years of experience spread across diverse industries like consumer goods, media, travel, lifestyle, loyalty, sports, and of course now fintech. He has launched multiple brands across categories. Prior to Angel One, Zameer served as the CMO at Rajasthan Royals, an Indian Premier League team. He has also worked with Intermiles, the frequent flyer program of Jet Airways, Loyalty One, Star India, Godfrey Phillips India, and Hindustan Unilever. Zameer, a very, very warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Ubra, for having me here.
Yeah. Zameer, as I was mentioning a while back, you've had an extremely diverse and storied journey so far in marketing, if I may say so. Walk us through that because this is obviously a very, very, interesting for me personally to see this spectrum of industry experience and diversity in your sort of career. So just walk me through how that happened, just some of the important milestones and just how your experience across these industries maybe in some way I'm sure shapes your approach to marketing. So just let's talk through a little bit of that.
Yeah, sure. It's good to go down memory lane. I think my overall career, as you highlighted, is over 20 years. I've had the good fortune to work across diverse categories, which really enrich your mindset, your learning, your growth curves, and different business perspectives, while the principles of marketing kind of remain fundamentally the same. I'll just maybe take a few minutes on the high milestone-led areas. So I think the stints with the FMCG brands kind of gave me the exposure on what's extremely important from a consumer inciting perspective and how does that translate into strong brand positioning propositions, and how does that come to life through customer experiences.
Mhm.
The stints with the media broadly helped in optimizing how basis the interest affinity of these audiences. What's your optimum mix from the media strategy, planning, and go live channels, platforms. The stint with travel, loyalty, lifestyle enriched the experience in terms of data transformation, digital transformation, marketing automation, tech enablement, and things like that. The sports stint, obviously, given the kind of customer passion the country has, strengthened exposure in terms of content, social, ATL, BTL, and community building initiatives. And with the current one, it's again a very interesting space where it's all about democratizing access and working towards financial independence of the audiences who are looking to start their investing journeys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been the exposure category wise. One being your brand strategy is normally an extension of your business strategy, and it's extremely important how the brand becomes a strong bridge and interface between what your business wants to communicate to the most potential audience profiles that you want to reach out, and you bring it to life through experiences which are meaningful and relevant for them. So I think anchoring the brand on a very strong core purpose or idea, irrespective of the product or categories that you're marketing, becomes extremely important. And let me maybe bring this to life through an example. So Disney always says they're in the business of magic, creating
Yeah.
magic, and that then, as a philosophy, reflects whether it's in their theme parks, their media and entertainment content, as well as into their apparels and accessories. Likewise, Nike always says they're in the business of making athletes perform to the best of their potential. And athletes here are defined as common people like you and me who are willing to show up every day.
Yeah.
And then that reflects in terms of their lines of businesses, whether it's sports equipment to accessories, merchandise to footwear. So I think that's a core which every marketeer or the brand philosophy should reflect on. And obviously, the second is about customer centricity, which needs to come out through all touch points which are there. So I think if these two principles are broadly kept in mind, then what your brand stands for, Who do you want to talk to, which is your broad bullseye TG, which has the maximum potential of driving business revenue. It's clearly defined. Then what's your messaging in terms of the most compelling propositions that make you memorable and distinctive in the consumer's mind. And then it's the easier part of where you want to reach them out in terms of platforms, channels, communication mediums. So you define the why well, and then the what is something which is very easy to follow.
That's fantastic. Actually, I really liked how you categorize each of your vertical specific experience into what you learned from that, and love the idea of the brand core defining everything else, right? That is, so if put differently, this is how the brand looks at the consumer. Like, okay, I go to them with a purpose, and then the what I'm trying to do as a brand reflects, and then everything else follows from there, right? But I think it's fair to say that in your last stint and in your current one, you must be also dealing a lot with Gen Z and millennials, right? Almost heavily so, if I'm if I would guess, right? And I think it's also fair to say that these two categories, Gen Z and millennials, have almost altered the Indian marketing landscape in terms of bringing heavy expectations that they typically have, right? So, what is your take on that? Do you feel that this has happened? So, for example, there is one view. When I ask this question to others, one perspective is no, you know what, nothing much has changed. You just take it at a category level and what they aspire for, and then keep pushing that, right? Whereas the other angle is no, they do have very specific, expectations, both both about how you'll reach out to them, maybe a bit more digital, and maybe the methods of reaching out to them. For example, in an earlier podcast, Vitika spoke about co-creation and things like that. So, how do you look at this? How are sort of maybe Gen Z and millennials redefining marketing strategies, if at all? That I
Yeah.
would have to understand that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's the largest population base of the country. They will also have the highest disposable income in terms of driving expenditure and purchase and consumption and decision making going forward as well as now. So, I mean, this generation, as we all are aware, is constantly evolving, challenging status quo, very fluid, agile, dynamic in their thinking. I think the larger point is they are looking for a relationship with brands beyond transactions.
Yeah.
Given the context of our business and category, I think the biggest insight is that consumers who are on the cusp of starting their investing journey are holding back due to some of the barriers, which could be in terms of some past negative experiences, which could be influenced by their friends or their parents. It's also about not taking the leap or the step forward because of inertia, and that inertia could be driven because of lack of education in terms of how do I go about starting my journey. It's also procrastination that when I get my next salary, when I get my next bonus, I will start. I don't know enough to get started, and things like that. But that is also constantly changing because the motivators are about financial freedom and how do I accumulate wealth faster, quicker with the goal of early retirement. So the average age of people who are starting the investing journey is now almost 18. You see a lot of women also participating and wanting to get into financial freedom quicker. So the cultural fuel is now that no more it is seen as a taboo. It's more like a ritual. Investing conversations are now more on dinner tables or at parties where you go where people talk about it. So all they are seeking is empowerment, where they have access. They are well enabled in terms of what they need to do, and there are now do-it-yourself self-servicing apps and brands which actually create very intuitive, seamless journeys which encourage and motivate this behavior. So, from a brand perspective, I think if the brand is able to, uh, in a very simple, transparent manner, communicate why investing as a journey is important as the end goal, which is broadly about financial freedom, wealth accumulation, and moving into the goals that they are aspiring to have. Empowering them with simple do-it-yourself apps, giving them ease of access, ease of use, education in a way which is very inclusive, which is more like a friend, an advisor, a guide, which is enabling your journey and giving you perspectives where you yourself feel confident. So they want to be in control. It's my money. I don't want to trust any other hand than my own. There are influencers and content creators, but after a point, do I need to trust them, or do I take charge of my own destiny in my own hand and then learn myself and go about doing the investing? So a lot of direction we are also seeing is that they want to do things all on one single platform or destination, which is like a super app or a all-in-one app. So how do you enable that? Because people are in different life cycles, life stages, and as they go through that, their goals and preferences also change. So I think at a high level, if marketers and brands can give the comfort around empowerment, aspiration as a key goal for motivation to driving a behavior towards investments, uh, the aspect of simplicity, ease of use, and the most important around trust, which is proven experience and expertise, where if you have to trust with your money, a brand, how does that come across? I think if these four key category drivers are into consideration, which brands bring to life, is where then you'll get the lion's share of the investment of these new to equity intenders, if I can loosely call it. And then it kind of is a win-win in both cases.
Fantastic. I love the four framework idea actually. That's a fantastic one. And I think that's a nugget that we'll definitely pick. So I think that point, Zameer, that you said of uh, this particular category of customers wanting to be empowered and wanting trust as at the heart of it, but also, like, I think there is one thing that you said which was very interesting, is that they don't want an intrusive experience. In some sense, you said that they don't want to be told it's my money, I choose, right? And so to that extent, maybe you can be a friendly guide, always standing by my side, and maybe being giving me gentle nudges or inputs, but not being heavily marketed to, right? Now that's a very nuanced point right there, right? So from a customer experience standpoint, what does that mean? Like, from a marketing standpoint or from a customer experience standpoint, what does that mean? And maybe if you can sort of touch upon a couple of examples, that would really drive home the point. I can see a lot of interesting ways in which you probably can do this, but what
Yeah.
would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure. So I think we can look at this in two, three ways. One is if you clearly map out your high customer value profiles and do an opportunity matrix around it. And if you say look at it in two, three dimensions, one dimension being around the risk appetite,
Mhm.
uh, which is basically a low, medium, high. And then there is this angle around the time on hand in terms of the age and the investment duration period, which is there, which
Yeah,
could be short, mid to long term.
yeah,
And then on these two dimensions, assuming that financial literacy, hygiene content in terms of educating the customers around why financial inclusion investment is critical stays a constant. And if you take the lens of the life cycle and the life stages that these consumers are in terms of the behavior that they are displaying and the objective with which they want to participate and how you're fulfilling the end goal for them. And let me illustrate this through an example. So, someone who's 18 or 20 years, his or her main primary goal is to be less dependent on parents and start their own investment journeys.
yeah.
For them, uh, the risk appetite is low. The horizon of investment is high because they've got a
Much
30,
higher.
40-year
Yes.
time span before they retire and once
Yeah.
they get into the corporate world. And financial literacy, as I said, is something that cuts across always. So for
Right.
them, the communication of the brand can be start small, start simple, start with a SIP as low as 100 rupees and get into the investment journey. For someone who's say in 25 to 30, first job, maybe just married, investing in their first home, their first car, the expenditures are high, So for them, the financial investment needs to take care of the expenditures and the loans that they are into, and hopefully in that process they end up saving some to the profit that they make. So for them, the conversations have to be is come on this full service super app or one stop destination of financial investing, where your personal loan requirement, your insurance requirements, whether it is motor, life, or even health is taken care. Look into sectorial equity or index fund investing because the risk appetite could be low to medium. And again, the investment horizon is a mid-term to long-term, given your 20, 30 years to go. Someone in their mid 40s, a 40 to 45-year profile, risk appetite high, investing period maybe 15, 20 years or a short-term exposure. For them, the conversations are then about their goals of child education, child marriage, retirement planning. So can you then, cross-sell products around portfolio management services or again, equity where the appetite to risk is medium to high. So if you look at it in this framework that I was talking around risk appetite, the age, financial literacy as a common cutting across, and the needs of the customer across lifestyle and life stages, different products can be cross-sold, upsell to involve them in their investing journey goals that are there. That's one way of doing it. And this kind of comes to your consumer value profiling and opportunity matrix, where your largest source of growths are. And obviously in this process, you'll have not an ideal path as well. There'll be different avenues that you would look at, which is the second point around the customer life cycle. So the new user onboarding that happens is extremely important because we all know in the first 2 or 3 weeks, a customer's appetite to engage with your brand is the highest. And if in that time you can translate the acquisition into a first activation, a repeat activation, cross-sell, upsell, those become the ideal loyalty path that you might want to take them. But we know life doesn't have an ideal path. So there will be drop-offs, there'll be lapses, there'll be inactive and dormant users. So what are then your strategies around the win backs or what are the aspects from AI and predictive modeling that you want to bring into the table, like the propensity to spend of a customer if you have the right nudges, or the predictability towards chain of a person who stopped interacting or engaging with you. So this is more about the user behavior and the segmentation from a customer lifecycle management, from the onboarding to the activation, retention, drop-offs, and journeys which are there.
Fantastic. So, in that case, and so maybe we can go a little bit into the tech side of things now. Uh, let's talk about the role of customer data, right? So, for each of these two frameworks that you said, one which is the consumer's risk appetite, the stage of the life stage that they are in, so taking all of that into factor, and the second, you sort of in many ways mirror that onto your service, right, in terms of where they are in their journey. Have they just been onboarded? Are they lapsed? Are they about active but not yet made their first transaction? So you mirror all of that here, right? So presumably the data frameworks that you use, the customer data that you use, also is a combination of these two. Is that right? And so how does that work? What kinds of data do you leverage in this process? How do you collect it? How do you organize it? Just give some sense of that. That would be
Yeah.
fantastic, actually. Yeah.
Sure. So I think it's important to have a very strong framework, as you said, or your tech stack or your integrated marketing come data analytics stack in place. I think this can be looked into three broad buckets. One is around your digital transformation that you want to drive,
Yeah.
which is about your website, your app, your loyalty and reward frameworks that you might have. The other aspect on that front also becomes then your creative suite, your content management system, the creative tech that you want to have from a UI UX perspective, the heat maps, the journeys, and the capturing of that front, which is there. Uh, the digital transformation then needs to be closely linked to your data transformation, which is uh, in spite of data residing in multiple silos in different streams, the effort is to create a single view of the customer of all the data sources, which then translates into an integrated marketing suite. But that's easier said than done because it requires an enterprise-wide culture to come in legacy systems to transform and change. But that obviously becomes a very important piece, because data is the fuel of growth. Your first party data needs to then strongly integrate with the second, third parties to come up with meaningful experiences that can be leveraged. And third, as you rightly said, is then the tech piece of it, which is how do you have the market intelligence and the data analytics on different tools depending upon the purposes. Now, that could be your CDP or your CRM, your CMS, your social analytics, which is there, and then the visualization aspects of the tooling which is required, so that
Yeah.
it's in a structured dashboard which can throw insights and translate into actionable outcomes. So I think if these three sub frameworks kind of come together in totality, these inputs will do a big justice in terms of the output that we're looking out from the customer value proposition mapping or the opportunity matrix, or even in terms of the CLM aspects that you want to look at it.
So now overlaying all of this is typically the angle of ethics and privacy, right? So that means especially probably in the financial services sectors, and I know in the sectors that you're currently in and so on, right? Now, how do you balance this? So obviously there is always this, and this is something that different people I've spoken to have different perspectives on this. Of course, at the center of all of this is trust, which we touched upon earlier as well, and in trust being at the core of this, right? But are there any practical kind of frameworks that you use to sort of decide this is it and no more, right? Or this is where we'll go, this is not where we'll not go. I know it's often a gray line, and it requires maybe a lot of prudence in terms of what to pick, what not to pick, right? Just curious to get your thoughts on that.
So, Subra, as you rightly highlighted, the regulatory norms and the guidelines are mandated. Likewise, the data protection and the privacy and usage norms again are extremely important to be followed to the T, because that could result to 1% loss of the turnover of a company if it's not abided by. But as you rightly also mentioned on the fact on the trust piece, because this is where the play with the customer comes in. And one of the critical guidelines that we follow is to ensure it's always consent driven. There is never a auto conversion of the consent of the consumer for any aspect. So they are extremely clear for what they are signing up, whether it's a communication preference through a channel or through a notification and things like that. So that becomes the start point, that I have your consent to reach out to you for this kind of a purpose and how this will benefit or help you. Second, I think the communication frequency and the governance around that becomes extremely important, so
Yeah,
that it is not intrusive. Uh, that again depends upon the data that you get, because some consumers are willing to engage at a higher frequency, but there are certain guardrails you can put in place, which might also help cross-functional teams in terms of not over abusing the communication channel as well as the frequency at which it goes to the consumer. It could be as simple as not more than one communication a day, not more than three in a week. And again, you layer it with a lot of data around send time optimization, A/B testing of the creatives, so that the edit and the text mix is perfect. Not more than one or two CTAs, so that the primary communication is above the fold, to the point, and things like that.
yeah,
Fourth, I think the data, as I was saying, tells a lot of story. If you see a lot of people not engaging, the unsubscribe rates going higher, you clearly understand that your governance norms and your communication frequencies are not working out.
got it.
So these become two or three important guardrails. And as you rightly said, there's no perfect playbook over here. It's
Yeah,
always evolving,
yes,
and you're always learning in the process, which is there. I think
yeah,
personalization becomes a big area over here, where it's customized truly in the sense through your recommendation engine, where it throws up information basis the knowledge that you have gathered about the consumer, and the past pattern or trend that you've seen becomes a good indicator for you to predict what the future actionable outcome for you could be there.
yeah,
And personalization engines then kind of can be in terms of very strong onboarding journeys, to looking at frameworks in terms of the assessment of the health check of the personal portfolios that they have created with you, then kind of giving them a snapshot of what the future recommendations can be. Also looking into aspects like risk assessment, fraud detection, security, safety. So I think once these things are taken care, the customer is also more keen to participate in conversations because they see it is value adding, it is rewarding, it is not intrusive. I think another aspect on the data framework also what is important is to collect the data that you think is most relevant and important and be minimalistic about it, because this data is also transient data. After a point, it may or may not indicate the behavior that I may display going forward. So what's the right time of storage of the data, and the purging of the data also becomes a critical angle of it. Maintaining the data, as you said, is critical in terms of how you store it, how you segment it so that it's individually relevant during your targeting process as well. Being in a hashed encrypted manner in servers and areas where the data custodians and the owners are very clearly defined,
Yeah.
from a business owner to who's kind of processing it. I think these become a few of the guardrails and the frameworks, but as I said, it's constantly evolving as a playbook.
Yeah, I love that. I loved your response on this one, and I think the one big takeaway that I have is your metrics tell you whether you're doing a good job. Like you rightly said, if you have higher unsubscribe rates or your activation or sort of your engagement rates are dropping, how do you interpret this to see where you're going wrong? I think that's a very good point that you brought out as well. Do you see this becoming easier or more difficult with AI, Zameer? That would be a very important perspective, and sort of what additional guardrails, if any, do you see getting placed with AI coming in?
Yeah. So actually, I'll take this question on a little higher level and then maybe come to the specific, because there's a lot happening on AI and it's a conversation everywhere. But I think what's important is, again, it is a cultural and a mindset shift that organizations need to have in terms of embracing it. Many a times it becomes conversations, but the true DNA adoption of it and embracing of it doesn't happen. So I think at an org level, two or three things become extremely critical, that it needs to be seen as an enterprise wide adoption, uh, which also means that people need to be patient with it, seeing that the investment that you're doing today is with the view of a long-term growth, while the initial indicators is in terms of man hour saving and cost efficiency and effectiveness. But the larger ROI will also come once you've invested enough in it, which is the third point I want to make, that the output is as good as the input. So
Hmm.
what you put in terms of your objectives, your use cases, and your prompts is what is that you will get as an output, which is there. So I think from an AI perspective, these three aspects as a starting guard rule is very important for an organization. From the marketing perspective, again, many a times it's seen in silos. So it's important to again start from the top, which is in all the consumer inciting that you're doing, whether it's through your conversational bots or your call center, all the social listening that you do, or the consumer hours that you spend, or the comments that you get in terms of the text mining and the keywords that you do. Can all this be put in an LLM model so that it throws actually rich customer personas, strong behavioral clustering, which then kind of navigates in terms of the communication that you want to do? On your brand side of it, can it start with a strong agentic brand AI, which actually comes to life in terms of what the true tone of voice, the personality, the visual identity guidelines that is there, and then it kind of throws up a report card or scorecard for an audit. That, because logo is just 2% of your visual identity, the symbology, the colors, the tone of voice, the imagery, the channels where you communicate, and the contextuality and relevancy that you want to come out with. So can that audit tool be a framework which throws up that, the error-free percentage was only this, and these were the factors where an XYZ team, didn't do a good job this month, and that kind of then becomes an optimization process which is there. You are aware, and we are seeing this a lot from a content and social perspective, making routine, mundane, daily communication content IPs more automated, more seamless, more intuitive. So those can happen, say, in your IPO alerts or your quarterly financial result, or any kind of contextual relevant topicality communication that would be happening. So that adoption is already there. We also noticing the AEO adoption, where we know now that's a good high single digit penetration of search engines of the LLMs, which is dominating, and click rates and traffics will go down. So how do you kind of optimize your game on that? Likewise, on your media piece, while you have media mix modeling, but can you have an AI element on it, which throws a what if scenarios, budget optimizers, X amount of spend will give you this ROI, X creative will give you better ROI basis the fatigue rates or the wear in wear out rates and things like that. So I think the roadmap and the implementation, while I say sounds very intuitive, but listing these use cases, having the right prompts, training it in a way that it's completely seen, and it doesn't stop here, right? It needs to go then to all your cross-functional teams, all your other departments. That's where the true pleasure will come of it, and it's a long way, a long journey we all need to go through. So it's important to have the lead indicators and the lag indicators in place, have a patient game to it. But consumers today also know, and that's the authenticity or the realness angle we need to put, because if too much of your content is through AIs and agentic chatbots, do they really find it authentic, real, believable?
Very valid.
Is a challenge that companies are facing. There are a lot of consumers that are saying, I don't find content creators or influencers reliable. For me,
Mm.
TV source matters a lot now, and I am my own influencer or content creator. And that's where my self learning, so gamification modules in the learning environment, which make jargons or concepts much more easier, going into vernacular languages. That's where the role can be very enriching, specific to our category, and the usage of AI. But as I said, getting it right is important.
No, I think that's a such an important point. I think beyond the point, especially the segment that we spoke of earlier, which you touched upon as well as being critical, Gen Z and millennials, they see through a lot of this if you're not authentic, right? They see through a lot of this if you overuse AI for anything, right? And then they are like, this is no longer trustworthy, and I will find my own way, right? And that is so important, just finding the right balance while staying true to your brand voice and your authenticity. That I think is so critical, right? It's a very big takeaway, and I think there's some very interesting ideas and use cases that you put up there, which I'm sure people will find very useful. So yeah, I mean, just to summarize, therefore, Zameer, I think we started with you talking about your professional journey. I loved how you, again, as I said, how you went to industry specific roles that you've done, and how what learnings you've taken that sort of fit into your puzzle as you are as a marketer today. And then all your insights around today's digital investors and how do you cater to them, the role of customer data, and again, your point on listening constantly via metrics to see if you're doing a good job with both using customer data as well as whether you're actually being relevant with your personalization. I thought that was fantastic as well. And of course, while we use AI and all of these things, staying true to your brand and being authentic, as we said. Fantastic. I think this was a great session, Zameer. I really enjoyed talking to you. Hopefully, you had a good time as well. Thank you so much for taking time out. Really appreciate it.
Likewise, Shubhra, had a great time chatting with you, and I hope your audience finds this conversation valuable to them as well. Thank you so
I'm
much.
sure they will. I'm sure they will. Thank you so much.